John Boquette from the Newtown Bee, visiting with Dr. John Reed, Superintendent of Schools, Interim Superintendent of Schools here in Newtown. Just really a night's sleep beyond the last Legislative Council's action to reduce the Board of Ed budget request by an additional $300,000. Dr. Reed, last night at the Legislative Council meeting, you worked to try to meticulously explain what the community would be getting for the remaining increase that is on the table. Can we talk a little bit about that and break that down?
Well, sure, John. I'm happy to, and as concisely as it gets for me, I would say the budget as it stands now is really a question of, can we maintain the level of resources that we have this year for next year? I think it's important with $1,800,000 less than the requested budget that people have an understanding that things that were described as new would not be available when the budget is finally adopted for implementation. Some of the things that I'd be referring to, the easiest thing is to touch briefly on some positions which were in the budget. A new vice principal for the high school, a new classroom teacher for the high school, secretary for the math and foreign language department, a new track coach and gymnastic coach, a guidance counselor, a director of guidance, increase in time over the summer, some clerical time for the intermediate school, world language teacher for the middle school, some partial assistance in terms of 2/10 a position for elementary schools in math, and 1/10 in the media specialist. Positions like that, it's not going to be possible, and I just want to stress right now the board has not taken action. They generally don't until they really know what the bottom line is. That has something to do with how you approach reductions to the requested increase in the budget. So I think it's fair to say that with the $300,000 reduction last night, excuse me, it's also very difficult for me to see how full-time kindergarten would be implemented. Having said that, that has been a major priority of the board for the last 2 years. There are new standards for what children are supposed to learn in kindergarten, so that issue is not going to go away. And the reality of it is the board is going to have to continually try to find an avenue to meet that objective. I don't think there's any choice over the next few years. So as budgets change, information about expenditures changes, you get more favorable bids, you have more retirements. But right now, there's nothing that would enable me to tell anybody that you should feel confident in any way that full-day kindergarten would be a part of the budget, as far as my recommendations would be.
In previous years, it was discussed last night that it appears the preference has been to forego some building maintenance projects and technology purchases in favor of either adding or retaining staff. This scenario that you're describing now seems just the opposite. Is it because right now, in your opinion, the district is at the point where it really just absolutely cannot afford to forego critical maintenance and technology purchases for another year?
Well, I think what you're referring to, John, is last year there was no money put into the maintenance account as far as doing projects in the school system, and that means that we started out in the hole by approximately $400,000, and that account, in the eyes of many, was underfunded for beyond 1 year. So that's why that started out with $840,000, and that was new money in our budget, and that accounted for about 20% of the increase that the Board of Education originally asked for. That will be reduced in the recommendations. It won't be reduced to zero. We won't be able to do what was asked for. We are shepherds of taking care of the budget of the buildings. They represent a significant investment for the town, and I always try to differentiate between reductions to the budgets and postponements. Postponements are things that you know you're going to have to grapple with at some point in the reasonably near future, so they get in line for next year's budget at the end of the process where they're eliminated from this year's budget. If you eliminate a program or an activity, that may not be automatically in line the next year. And of course, my way I approach things when I look at a budget is I think the students in Newtown should generally find in their public schools the types of curriculum and activities that are found in virtually every school system in Connecticut as sort of a baseline. And I use that as a reference point to when I look at what we should be offering students. I think the lesson from last referendum is, and I really am speaking directly to people who are concerned about the future of the Newtown public schools, every vote counts, and I need to look you in the eye and as earnestly and sincerely as I can say it's my considered opinion that it's essential that this budget be passed. And I respectfully ask for people who feel public schools have been and will continue to be an important factor in Newtown to vote for the budget this year.